Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, October 8th, 2021. I am Andrew Hanson alongside Josh Crash Davis. And we've got the Friday night Under the Lights podcast for the Week 5 main slate. And it's a challenging one, Josh. We've got a lot of the key big stars not on this slate because we've got KC and Buffalo in a primetime game. We just had the Rams and Seahawks. So I hope you're ready for this challenge. Hopefully you're feeling better than Russell Wilson, fully healthy. Tough break for him with the finger injury. He's started every game of his career, and now he's going to be sidelined for quite a bit.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a rather challenging slate in some ways, but this is where we can rely on our expertise and our research to really give us an advantage over the field. So,
absolutely,
I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, and I love weeks 5 through 8 here. We've got so much data, weeks 1 through 4. We've seen all these teams in different matchups, so we have a better feel for them. We start to zero in on some of the better matchups. So let's get after the quarterbacks here. We're going to go position by position like we've been doing all season here to get everybody ready for the main slate and start to build some of our lineups. So quarterback position, if you're paying up this week, where are you looking?
So for me, I'm actually looking at Kyler Murray. He's the most expensive quarterback on DraftKings at $8,000, but it's deservedly so. Last week, when he went up against the Rams, I think a lot of people thought he might struggle. And not only did he not struggle, but they had a rather convincing win in LA. It was pretty surprising to me.
That was.
And this week he goes against the San Francisco team that's allowed the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They have all kinds of injuries in their secondary. And so, Murray's got Hopkins, and he's kind of got a resurgent AJ Green all of a sudden, and Christian Kirk, and tight end Max Williams is kind of having a big breakout right now. So I like all those options for Murray, and he's going to have another big game, I think, projected by Pro Football Focus to be the 2nd highest projected scoring quarterback on the slate. So,
yeah, he just keeps proving people wrong and putting up big games. That was a really impressive win. And I talked about on one of the previous shows, you can play him naked and not try to match him up with any particular pass catcher because he has so many weapons. It's hard to choose.
Yeah.
People are disappointed with DeAndre Hopkins, but he just doesn't need to pepper him with targets.
Right.
So many great options, like you said. So you can roll him out solo and feel good about that. My pay up this week is Tom Brady. And this is part of just the emotional rebound because, man, what a drain that was to go up to New England, play in the rain, down to the wire.
Yeah.
Real tough game. And he was dealing with a lot. And so now he gets to go back home against Miami. Real solid matchup. They're favored by 10, over under 48. By the way, this is another reason why this slate is challenging. As you know, Josh, is that out of these 12 games, there's only 2 with a total over 50. Most weeks recently, we've had at least 5. So we've got all these shootout games, but not this week. So you really got a battle here. I think Tom Brady, if you're going to pay up, is a pretty safe option. I don't think you're going to see him go back-to-back weeks without a touchdown. He's had a great start to the season, back in the good weather. So he's my potential pay up.
Yeah, I like Tom Brady. Obviously a safe choice, and he's got really good history against Miami. I mean, he pretty much has had their number. So,
yes, indeed,
like that. For my second quarterback, I'm looking at Dak Prescott. He's 6,900 on DraftKings. He's off to a really strong start this year again, coming back from the injury with 10 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions, and he's going up against the Giants defense that ranks 24th in fantasy points allowed against quarterbacks, and he's now thrown for 3 touchdowns or more in 3 of his 4 games, and he has probably his most favorable matchup this year so far. So definitely think that Dak Prescott's going to be a great play this week.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. Like you said, lots of passing touchdowns, 7 in the last 2 weeks. And we need that because he hasn't been running much,
right?
Because of his health. So it's great that he's comfortable back there and piling up the numbers. And this is the highest total on the board at 52. Dallas favored by 7 over at BetUS.com.pa, one of our partners. So I like the Dak call for sure. And I like Daniel Jones on the other side. This may be my favorite game of the week, Josh. Jones is down at 6,000, so you save a little bit there. Awesome matchup. Dallas is number 31 against the pass this year. They are the 7-point underdogs, so he should be firing it a lot. He's coming off over 400 yards against New Orleans. Now, that was an overtime game. And once again, he's hurting with his receivers because Shepard and Slayton are out. But, that was the same scenario last week with Golladay, Tony, Ross, and he got it done because, he's got some other weapons too. He's got Saquon Barkley coming out of the backfield and both tight ends healthy now.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram, Rudolph. So, he's got a bunch of options. I mean, those wide receivers aren't quite as imposing as the Arizona guys, but, lots of weapons for him to choose from in a great matchup, high scoring. So there's a way to save some money.
Yeah, and he's not been the turnover-prone Daniel Jones that we've seen in the past. He's really done a good job of protecting the football, and it's just made a huge difference in his fantasy production because he's not losing all those points from interceptions and fumbles. So
enormous.
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
Agree.
So for the third pick, I'm going with a value quarterback. It's going to be Mac Jones. He's 5,300 on DraftKings. Last week he really held up very well. He didn't seem intimidated against Brady. He had completed 31 of his 40 passes, which I never would have thought in my wildest dreams they would have thrown 40 times, but they did. And going up against the Texans defense this week that ranks 26 in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. They've allowed 264 yards passing per game this year. And, at only 5,300, Jones isn't going to have to do much to hit value. So I think that's going to be a great value play this week for somebody looking for some value at quarterback.
Yeah, I like it. Nice price. And he's got to have a ton of confidence after that performance. Everybody's singing his praises. Yeah. Like you said, great completion percentage. He executed the game plan very well. So I think he's underpriced. Now, if you don't want to go that route, by the way, I did want to mention we have to keep an eye on the offensive line there for the Patriots.
Yes.
Looking like at least 2 of their linemen will be out and potentially up to 4 with injuries and COVID. So, this is Friday night. We'll be checking on that through the weekend before we make our final lineup selections for the members.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to go there, or perhaps you've got him slotted in there and you decide last minute you want to make a pivot, you could go to Justin Fields, 5,200. Bears traveling to Las Vegas. And here's the big news with the Bears, of course, is that Montgomery is out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that hurts the offense in general. He's a really solid performer, but Damian Williams is a capable backup. And I think there's a chance that instead of him handing off to Montgomery for a couple rushing touchdowns like last week, he may just keep it himself and get one. Las Vegas is number 23 against the run. So I think this is Fields' chance to really get in the groove and start doing more damage on the ground. He only carried it 3 times last week for 9 yards. So hopefully with Montgomery out, he runs it more. He did pass for 209 yards against Detroit, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a nice threshold. Again, that's going to give him confidence.
Yeah.
He seems to have connected with Mooney. And, at 5,200, if you pass for over 200 yards and get some more rushing yardage and get in the end zone, you're going to pay off the price tag. So that's a way to go cheap and then pay up at the other spots.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way to go. And the more he plays, the more confident and comfortable in the system he's going to get. And so I think he's just going to get better and better as he plays. So
excellent. All right, well, let's keep going here position by position. Running back is next. If we pay up there this week, where are you looking?
Yeah, I am looking to pay up once again to Derrick Henry. Probably going to be the chalky running back once again. But, he's had 3 straight 100-plus yards rushing games, had 157, something like that against the Jets last week. And going up against Jacksonville, that's a 21st in fantasy points allowed to running backs. Julio Jones is out again. So, the offense is just going to primarily run through him, I think. He had 33, 28, and 35 carries in the last 3 games. So if he hasn't completely broke down yet, he's going to get the ball a lot. So,
he's the bionic man. He's just incredible. So if anybody can handle that workload, it's him. And Jacksonville has allowed 6 rushing touchdowns already. So I like the play. Favorites here on the road. Decent total, too, 48.5. So,
yeah.
All right. I'm going to pay down a little bit here. I do like Henry, but I'll mention Nick Chubb for my first option here. Cleveland, of course, matching up against the Chargers. And, the Chargers are a perfect example of a team that's, we talk about pass funnel teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're number 5 against the pass and number 29 against the run. So, if you want to bang your head against the wall with, that the secondary, the pass rush, you can, or you can try to take advantage of their weakness, which is their run stopping.
Yeah.
So I like Chubb here at that price. He's been really solid, averaging over 17 carries, over 90 yards. He's got 3 touchdowns so far. So he hasn't had that smash game yet, but it won't take too much to get to 20 fantasy points and give you that 3x return here.
Yeah. I like that play a lot. I do.
All right. Running back number 2 for you.
For me, for my second running back, I'm going to go with Ezekiel Elliott. He's 7,000 on DraftKings. He's continued to see his workload increase as the season's gone on. Last week, he had a season high 20 carries, and he had 143 yards rushing and a touchdown against a really good Carolina team. And this week, he goes up against a Giants team that ranks 23rd in fantasy points allowed to running backs. Now, he is listed as questionable, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that, but he is expected to be able to play through any pain or discomfort that he's feeling. So I think that he will give it a shot on Sunday.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, he's definitely trending in the right direction. I think Pollard kind of woke him up with his performance to start the season. My next pick is going to be Chubba Hubbard at 6,000 on DraftKings. He's got the Eagles this week, and they are number 32 against the run, giving up over 150 yards per game.
Yeah.
Now, last week, Hubbard, he was fine. He got 15 touches, over 70 yards, couple receptions. The concerns, though, here with Hubbard, I'm not all in on him yet because of a few things. One is Rodney Smith came off the bench and caught 5 catches out of the backfield. And then DJ Moore, this is one of the things you can really gain from if you watch the games. He had a receiving touchdown where he started lined up in the backfield as the only halfback, Josh. So Hubbard wasn't in there. They're in the red zone. Hubbard's not in the backfield. Right. It's DJ Moore, and he runs the classic CMC route, comes out of the backfield, cuts back over the middle. He's wide open for an easy touchdown. So the reason to invest in Hubbard last week was to get him that play, those types of plays. I thought he would get more targets, and he just didn't. So I'm concerned about that, but it is a great matchup, good price. The other concern is Darnold, who has 5 rushing touchdowns.
Right.
So does that change? Does he hand it off finally, inside the 5? So, Hubbard, I'm not locked in on him yet, but I see the potential there.
Yeah. Darnold's just really shown aggression that we never saw when he was with the Jets. So he gets down there in that goal line and just runs it in. So hopefully this week he'll be handing it off to Chubba.
Exactly. All right. How about one more running back?
Yeah. So for the last running back I'm looking at is going to be James Carner of the Arizona Cardinals. He's 5,600 on DraftKings. He's found the end zone twice in his last 2 games. And this week is going up against San Francisco, who ranked 25th in fantasy points allowed to running backs. And on top of that, Chase Edmonds is currently listed as questionable. So if he's ruled out this week, then that's going to be more opportunity for Carner, and he's not going to have to rely as much on the goal line carries. He's going to be able to get some regular carries too. So that's going to make him a great value play, especially if Edmonds is out.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those backfields where it's so balanced that if one of those guys is out, it's a huge opportunity for the other. So I think this would be the potential type of week to invest in that backfield. Speaking of injuries, Josh, my final running back here, Mr. Alexander Madison. We've got Cook doubtful. He hasn't practiced, though, so I'm thinking he's going to be out.
Yeah.
And when Madison got that start last time around, he was against Seattle, ran for over 100 yards, 6 catches for 59, had 26 DraftKings points without scoring a touchdown.
Wow.
And now against Detroit, they're number 24 against the run.
Yeah.
Minnesota's favored by 10 with a 49.5 over under. I mean, you just can't draw up these scenarios better for a guy that's priced at 5,500. It's just with a team that loves to run it and have a bell cow. This is a guy I'm ready to lock in at this point. If Cook is out, he's my favorite play on the board in terms of his price.
Yeah, and we saw what Aaron Jones and David Montgomery both did against Detroit. So I definitely think that Madison's an awesome play.
Exactly. Nice point. All right, before we get to some pass catchers, wide receivers, and tight ends, just want to invite folks to check out the website, dfscoachtalk.com. Learn a little bit about us, and you can join us if you'd like. Grab a membership, grab a 5-day pass, and come in for $19 and see what we've got to offer. We have full lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo in all of our sports. We have the DraftKings coaches clipboard in NFL with some highlighted plays and then a bunch of other guys to consider. If you're going to build a stack, you can build different lineups with it. So we get you ready for the main slate. Of course, we'll have our showdown lineups with the primetime games.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do that podcast later, so keep an eye out for that. But basically, we cover all of the main slates in the NFL: the Thursday night game, the main slate, Sunday night, Monday night, with full lineups.
Yeah.
So great time to join now with all the other sports going as well. So dfscoachtalk.com and come join the family. We'll send you an email. Just make sure if you want to come in for football, just make sure you come in by Sunday morning so we can get you into Discord with an email.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, how about some wide receivers? Anybody you'd like to pay up for potentially?
Yeah, I'm looking at another Viking. We were just talking about Alexander Madison. On the receiving side of that, I'm looking at Justin Jefferson. He's been Kirk Cousins' favorite target this year with 37 targets. He scored a touchdown in 3 consecutive games, and now he probably has his best matchup to date. In fact, Pro Football Focus gave him a 99.9 rating against all Detroit defenders, which almost sounds like a typo, but
yeah, that's eye-opening.
Insane. It really is.
9s are wild. Wow.
Yeah, but I've seen that Detroit secondary, and they're not very good. And Jefferson has a great matchup against any of those guys. So,
yep, excellent. Should be a nice safe pick. My first guy that I'm looking at is Deontay Johnson. And I'm not locked in on him yet. I'm curious about Claypool. He's questionable. If he's back in the lineup, I don't like the play as much. It's not a smash matchup because it's Denver, and they've been strong defensively. The total's only 39.5. We know Big Ben has had his struggle so far, but he loves to dump it off with these short passes to Deontay specifically. In his last 3 games, or the targets, he's had 10, 12, and 13. He's totaled 23 receptions, a couple of touchdowns. He's, because of all this PPR and all these targets he's getting, he's averaging 20.4 DraftKings points per game. And that's more than your buddy Devontae Adams and Jefferson, the 2 most expensive receivers on this slate.
Yeah.
They average 20.1 and 20.3. Now, Devontae, he could go for 35 in a heartbeat when he gets his big breakout game. And like you said, Jefferson might absolutely smash.
Mm-hmm.
But just interesting note kind of jumped out at me with him being only 6,500. So he's a guy that I'm looking at. Again, Denver has been strong, but Pro Football Focus is giving him an average matchup on the outside against Fuller and Surtain.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, we may need to check in with Omaha Joe. He's on the road. He's up in Chicago for I think a marathon. One of his family members. So we may need to check in with him and make sure it's okay that we go up against his Broncos.
Yeah, we may want to do that. But at the same time, I thought that, I think I told you in Discord that I didn't necessarily want to play Deontay Johnson last week, and he ended up having a good game because he got that touchdown right off the bat. And then he was targeted, like you said, 13 times. So if he can do that kind of, production against Jair Alexander, then he could do that against one of those Denver defenders too. So he still might be a good play, even if it's a tough matchup on paper.
Excellent. All right. Choice number 2 at wide receiver.
For my second wide receiver, I'm looking at A.J. Brown of the Tennessee Titans. He's 6,500 on DraftKings. He hasn't had that big game. I feel like a lot of people have been waiting for him to have that after what he did last year, especially. But this week, he's got an excellent matchup against the Jaguars team that's 22nd in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. And Julio Jones was just ruled out. So he's going to be Tannehill's top option once again in the passing game, like I said, like he was last year. And so I'm looking for him to have a breakout game this week at pretty low ownership, I think.
Yeah, exactly. How is he going to be coming off the injury? That probably will depress his ownership a bit, but they've got to be ultra motivated after that tough loss to the Jets.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit cheaper here for a little DraftKings special potentially in Jalen Waddle, 4,800. The Tampa, number 32 against the pass and number 1 against the run. So call me crazy. I think they're going to try to pass it. Really like New England did. We ended up, before we released our lineups for that game, we watched tape, we digested it, thought about the game plan, and realized that New England probably would go with that approach of let's just avoid this run defense, short passes all day long to Bourne, and the tight ends were heavily involved, and Myers. And I don't know why other teams wouldn't do the same thing. And we know that, this is what Miami's been doing with Brissett. He's been just targeting Waddle, Gasicki, short passes. The average depth of target is basically nothing.
Right.
But PPR, you get 6-8 of those catches. You're golden. And last week he disappointed. He only had 3. But the week before, he had 12 catches for 58 yards.
Yeah.
And not only New England, but you back up and you look at what Cooper Kupp did in the slot, which is where Waddle operates. He had 9 for 96 and 2 scores. Lamb lit him up, 7 for 104 and a score. So it's just the best matchup you can get against Tampa, in my opinion. And he's only 4,800. So I like him on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's really been surprising to me how much Tampa struggled against the pass this year. I mean, for one thing, they're not getting the pass rush that they got last year. And I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning is for that, but they were just all over quarterbacks, especially in the playoffs and into the Super Bowl, of course. So they're just not the same pass defense this year. So
yeah, and they just keep getting more and more injuries in that secondary as well.
Yeah. So for my value play wide receiver, I'm looking at Tyler Boyd, the Cincinnati Bengals, 5,300 on DraftKings. Jair Alexander is out for Green Bay this week, which means that Boyd's either going to draw Kevin King, who came back this week, or Eric Stokes. And I think that Green Bay is what they're going to do is they're going to send some extra safety help towards Jamar Chase and force somebody else to beat them. And so that's going to leave Tyler Boyd with some good matchups one-on-one, either against King, who's really struggled lately, going back to last year, and then or possibly he could be up against Eric Stokes, who's a rookie, and he's shown some promise, but he's also unproven, so they might test him quite a bit too. So either way, I think Tyler Boyd has a good matchup.
All right. Again, I love it. Being impartial as a master Packers man. So you gotta give that some extra love when you're building your lineups. One value play for me, Kadarius Toney, as these Giants again go up against Dallas, number 31 against the pass, underdogs. They should be throwing it. Last week, finally got his big opportunity, 6 catches for 78. Plays 62% of his runs, 62% of his routes out of the slot. We got that nice matchup against Lewis. I think Trevon Diggs will be really focused on Galladay. So, there's Ross out there. They're the other pass catchers I mentioned. But again, on DraftKings for 4,000, I think he's a little bit underpriced with Shepard and Slayton out.
Yeah. I like Kadarius Toney coming out of Florida, and he's bound to have a big game soon. So hopefully it's this week.
All right, Josh, let's hit some tight ends and defense to fill out these lineups. Where are you looking for a tight end option?
Well, I'm going to give the Packers a little bit of love here. I'm going to go
Okay.
with Tunyon, 4,300 on DraftKings. He has gotten off to a slow start this season, but I think that part of that is because they're asking him to provide some extra pass blocking help. With all the injuries they've had on the offensive line, he's just been chipping a lot on a lot of their pass plays. So he hasn't been down the field like he normally would be. But this week, Elton Jenkins, their Pro Bowl left guard who can play in multiple different positions for them, is supposed to be back. So if he's back, that's going to help solidify the line, which I think is going to open up some more opportunities for Tunyon, especially in the red zone and just down the field in general. And I think defenses are going to stay pretty focused on Devontae this week. And then after what we saw last week with Randall Cobb, they're going to be looking for him too. So it's going to give Tunyon some opportunities to maybe find himself wide open. And I think Rodgers is going to connect with him for at least one touchdown this week.
I like it. Good call. I mean, Tunyon, such a monster last year. He's not going to, throw up duds every week. He's got to turn it around eventually. So this could be the week. One guy to look at for me, Dalton Schultz, who's really been smashing it. He's averaging 5 catches a week for over 40 yards, even though Jarwin's involved as well. He's had 3 touchdowns. And the Giants have given up the 3rd most fantasy points to tight end. They've given up 1 touchdown every single week. In the last 2 weeks combined, Schultz has 15 targets. So he's just really kind of solidifying his role. 4,400 is a real good price, I think, for a guy like that. And yeah, he's been hot. So, does he have a dip? Yeah, he will eventually.
Yeah.
But such a great matchup. I think it's a decent way to go.
Yeah. Yep. I like that. So for my value pick for tight end, I'm looking at Zach Ertz. I was on him last week against the Chiefs, and he had a good game for me. He's 3,400 on DraftKings. He saw 8 and 7 targets in the last 2 weeks, and this week he's going up against Carolina, who are very good against wide receivers. They're 4th against wide receivers, but they're middle of the pack against tight ends. They're 16th. So I look for them to, for Philly to try and take advantage of any matchup opportunity that they have with Ertz. And with the amount of targets he's seen lately and his low price, I think he's going to be a great value play in both cash and tournaments this week.
Yeah, definitely. He was a big factor in that last game. Goddard, was as well, but they both had plenty of opportunities. Ertz had a touchdown called back.
Yeah.
So, Hertz definitely likes using those guys. My other tight end this week is going to be Mike Gasicki, and it makes me a little sick to say it because he just really makes me nervous. But Tampa has given up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. Again, these guys are 10-point underdogs, so we think Brissett's going to have to throw it a bunch. And in the last 3 games with Brissett here, Gasicki has taken off 18 catches, 24 targets. He's gotten the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an average of 6 catches on 8 targets per week and over 60 yards. So, he's another guy who can disappear. That's why I'm always nervous to play him. But at 4,200, again, if they follow the game plan, look at what New England did. I mean, New England, fed both of those tight ends.
Yeah.
Henry and Jonnu had solid games.
Mm-hmm.
So you add a little bit more since it's primarily just Gasicki. And, this might be the one of those weeks that I'll give him a little run.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
All right, excellent. Josh, let's finish up with some defenses here. Couple options at the top, but another week that another challenging position in my opinion. Let's see if we can come up with a couple possibilities.
Yeah, so for me at the top, I'm looking at Tampa Bay's defense. They're the 2nd highest projected scoring defense this week, according to Pro Football Focus. They have the Dolphins, who rank 31st in points per game with 15.5 points, and also 31st in total yards per game with 252 yards. So this should be a favorable matchup for Tampa. They're playing at home. I could see them getting a couple turnovers and, really, really make a big day for somebody with their lineup in fantasy.
Yeah, good points. And, I mentioned a couple Miami wide receivers, and normally we don't like playing offensive players against our defense, but this might be one of the unique scenarios where we might recommend having exposure to both because, especially on DraftKings with PPR, you can have Waddle catch 12 for 58 and not score. And that's a 4x return. And, Brissett can still turn it over a couple times, and Tampa can have a strong game as well defensively. So that's the way that it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
And especially in GPPs, if you do those types of combinations, you can get unique. All right, my pay-up defense, the Patriots, they've got Houston. How about this? They're favored by 9 on the road, and the total's only 39.5. So, anytime you have that type of scenario, you're looking at an implied total of like 15 points for Houston. So Vegas is just not expecting much scoring for them. And how could you? I mean, look at that group of skill position players. Davis Mills, 7 turnovers in his 3 weeks. Hasn't even thrown for 200 yards yet. And then you've got Belichick, ready to scheme up again. Their best weapon's been Brandon Cooks, and Bill knows all about him. So I think he'll have a plan for Cooks, and they'll be able to limit the rest of the squad. Probably another ugly day for Houston.
Yeah, I definitely like New England too. Good play.
All right, how about a value pick?
For value, I'm looking at Washington. They're 2,300 on DraftKings. I know last year they were kind of the fantasy darlings when it comes to defense and, DFS, with Chase Young kind of leading the way as a rookie. And I think that they're about to put their early struggles behind them. This week they're going up against Jameis Winston. I know that he has protected the football better this year. He's only thrown 2 interceptions, but they're going, Washington has the 10th best defense in fantasy against running backs. So I think they're going to go and try and contain Kamara and force, either Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill to beat them, which I think is going to lead to some turnovers. So they're basically a punt play. So you're not taking a huge risk at that price. So I see a lot of upside with Washington this week.
Yeah, I think it's worth considering. If Jameis is protecting the ball better, that's a step in the right direction. But the passing offense is number 31 in the league. So if they can contain Kamara, they're in a good spot. And I'm going to follow up with our analytics guru, John Wiehausen, because he's a Washington football team fan.
Okay.
And get some thoughts from him about this defense because they've been underperforming. And so we'll get his take and share that with the members because 2,300 is a great price.
Yeah.
One other option, if you don't want to go with one of those 3 defenses we've already mentioned, for me would be Cleveland at only 2,700. And they've got a pretty tough matchup. It's the Chargers. They're actually 2-point underdogs, but they've just been so solid this year, averaging only 16 points allowed per game, only 250 yards.
Wow.
They've gotten to the quarterback with 14 sacks. And although we love the skill position players for the Chargers, they haven't really been prolific. They're 14th in points scored and only 11th in yards. And we've seen all these low-scoring games with Cleveland. They obviously want to run the ball, shorten the game, and you get fewer possessions for the Chargers, then that can really help Cleveland. So I think it could turn out to be a decent low-owned option.
Yeah, I think so too. And like you said, they've really controlled that time of possession with their run game. So that definitely favors a lower scoring game, which leads to better fantasy production for a defense. So I could definitely see it being a great play.
Beautiful. Well, hopefully this has helped everybody get ready for the main slate. If you like what you've seen here, we'd love it if you would give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that alert button, and you'll know when all of our podcasts post. Like I said, Josh and I are going to do the primetime show later tonight, so that'll be up this weekend. Make sure you tune in for that. We've got baseball podcasts going up, NBA preseason. We're off to a good start there. Coach had a takedown lineup last night. We've got our golfers doing well. So great time to subscribe to the channel and join. Again, dfscoachtalk.com. Come in, give us a shot this weekend. We'd love to have you. Josh, any final thoughts here?
Yeah, like we opened it up with, I'm looking forward to the challenge this week. I think we've got a lot of opportunity to get pretty different from the rest of the field and hopefully have a big takedown this week. That's obviously the goal.
Can't wait. Planning on it. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, great. Well, good work. Thank you everybody for tuning in. On behalf of Josh Crash Davis and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hanson. We'll see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.